going to take our 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper and we're going to cut it at 10.5, and we're going to cut it at 5.5. Take your scrap, cut that at 3.5, and all of our cutting is done. Now we score. We're going to take our piece that we cut at 3.5. We're going to score it at half on each side. That's okay. Burnish that out of there. On our long piece, 10.5 inch side, we're going to score 2.5, 5, 7.5, and 10. Flip it, and we're going to score it at 3. Scoring is done. We take our small paper trimmer in this piece. What we can actually do is just push that mistake that I made back through with your bone folder. That pretty much gets rid of that. This is just slightly longer than 3 inches, so we're going to bring it to the 3-inch mark, and we're going to score that or chop that at 3. And we're going to then cut this into 1-inch strips. And these have become our support pieces for the middle that we're going to attach our designs to. Okay, once we have that done, we're going to take our scissors, we're going to remove this section here, and we're going to cut down to the score line on the longer rectangular sides. These have become our flaps for the top. I'm going to cut a piece of designer paper to go on this to cover it up. I've done that here. Basically it's just a 1-inch by 2.5 inch strip, and that'll coordinate with the rest of my papers that are going to go on the card. Okay, so I've chosen the papers that I'm going to use for the card, and I'm going to just coordinate everything with that. I've got our base ready to go. I've cut out my flowers already from this same pattern paper, and then we did the gold reflective for the center of the flowers. I've got everything here. We're going to glue these center dots onto the flower here. And we've got some gold balloons. Pattern some solid paper on the back there that we're going to just glue to give that some more support. So I'm just going to glue all this together. Okay, so we have all of our elements here. We've got our 6 balloons, 6 of the small flowers, 6 of the large flowers done in the different shades of the designer paper. We've got our support pieces for the middle. One of these cards, I'm actually going to do 2 cards at the same time. One of them is going to be for an 80th birthday, so I've got a big 80 with the same colored solid paper on the back for support, and I've also got a small 80 done in a little bit of a funky font. I haven't decided yet which one we're going to use. So now we're going to put our base together. So we're just going to move all of this off to the side. We need these, we need our base, and you need some strong glue. So when you put this base together, you're actually going to fold it in on itself. This little tab will be the tab that holds it all together. You can see here on the inside. That's going to be your back piece. Wherever that tab is, that will be your back piece. So you want to rotate the card for it to face you here, so that you know where you're going to put your support pieces. You want the pattern paper to face you, so we know that we're going to attach it on this side and this side. So then we're going to reopen our card, knowing that we're going to put our support piece this way, and then we can glue it down. This is the easiest way to do this. I find, rather than trying to get it glued down after you've got the card together, it's just a little bit easier this way. I just need to unclog my glue. Just give me 1 sec. Okay, so now we're going to put our glue on here. Make sure it's a Stronghold glue. And we're going to place one right about there. The next one we'll put down. We'll go directly behind it. About 1/4 of an inch. And you're going to try and line them up as close to the score line in the middle as possible. And then the third one will go down. Again, about 1/4 of an inch. Any extra glue like that, just wipe it off. Don't worry about any of this overhang piece from the designer paper. You really won't notice that when the card is all put together. Fold down your tab. Apply some glue to that. Fold back these support tab pieces, the 1/2 inch pieces that we scored. Apply glue to those. And we're going to close the card on top of itself. Hold those down. Then we're going to close the card on top of itself and onto this tab. Make sure it's lined up on the bottom and give it a good press. Hold it for a few seconds and open it. Check to make sure they're all attached on the inside. Turn it the other way, rotate it, and give it another good press. And then you're going to set that aside for a few minutes to let it set. Okay, now we're going to apply our pattern pieces. So we're going to put our squares on the bottom. These are 2 1/4 by 2 1/4. I always like to make sure everything's all coordinated. As far as colors go, theme, to find out what the person wants on their card. I'm just going to put that down, give it a good press. And just continue on. For the 3 sides, you don't want it on the back part, the back panel, because you're going to have your card that you're going to write your message on there, so you don't really need to have that. So you only need 3 pieces for the bottom. You'll need 4 for the top flaps, but we'll go over those sizes in a sec. So again, these ones are 2 1/4 by 2 1/4. Your back panel is here, and so we have those placed on the bottom. We're going to fold down our 3 flaps on the top, again leaving your back piece solid. We've got 3 pieces for that. Now, you want to keep this pattern paper as simple as possible, just because you're going to have it covered over with the sentiments and the greetings anyway, so it doesn't really need to be anything too fancy. So we're going to go ahead and glue those down. So these pieces are 2 3/4 by 2 1/4 for the 3 flaps, and then your back panel is actually going to be just slightly smaller than 2 1/2, and you can make that up to 4 3/4 if you want. You're not going to see it. It's going to be just down on the inside of the card anyway. So anywhere from 3 inches to 4 3/4 is fine. We're going to glue that on there. I'm actually going to take a couple-minute break here because I need to redo my nails. I just noticed that they have chips in them. And this is probably the 3rd week I've had this polish on. It's from Sistico. It's a new brand that I'm trying. They're from Australia, actually. Really nice system. It's a powdered mineral powder, and it stays on forever, which is great. But I noticed that I'm getting to the end of this application, so I'm going to take a little break while that dries and redo my nails, and I'll be right back. So the next step is to get our items ready to go on the card. So I use acetate, and this is just some acetate off of a package. So really you can reuse and repurpose some packages if you come in. Get them when you buy anything. You just need strips big enough to be able to, I use tape and glue to secure my acetate to my items. And so you just really need strips big enough to accommodate the width of whatever tape you're using. And how I secure mine, for instance, we'll do a flower balloon, 2 flowers in a balloon. I take my acetate strips. There's no measurements for them, just however, if you want them really tall, you cut them longer. It's just something that you kind of eyeball for yourself. My tape, and I put a spot of tape on the bottom where it's going to attach to the die cut. Remove the backing. I also use a strong adhesive glue as well, just a couple drops. I like to make sure that my items are not going to fall off of the card or off of the strip of acetate. And then you just simply secure it on the back. Let it dry for a few minutes, and then you can attach to your card. There's a couple little tricks to keep in mind when you're attaching to your card. We'll go over those in a second. Simple as that. I'm going to go ahead and attach the rest of these, and then we'll get ready to attach everything to our card. Okay, here's now where we try and decide where we want our die cuts. How do we want to arrange them? We want a balloon in the front. This 80 is massive. We're going to put that in the back like so. Put everything around it. I mean, it is a pretty big birthday. As you're trying to decide what you're going to do, you have to keep in mind that the card has to close. For instance, if I was to decide that I wanted this flower like this, and I was to close my card this way and try and get it into an envelope, I'm not going to be able to because it's sticking outside the side of the card. So every one that I put on, I do it the same way. Put tape and then glue. I decide where I want it beforehand. I close my card to make sure that it's going to stay within the area of my card, and then I know that I can attach it down. As you get back here, the further back you go, the more you can angle them out to the right because it obviously stays within the boundary, but you can't. You have to watch on the left-hand side. So on the right, the further back you go, you can angle it out. On the left, you can't. So you have to be conscious of that when you're doing your card. So I'm just going to play around with a couple of scenarios here. I'm going to make some attachments, and then we'll take a look at what we're going to put on here for sentiments. Okay, the next thing after I've got all of this down is to decide on what sentiments we're going to use. And then I also incorporate these sometimes. So I'll take the die cuts that I was going to use there. I'll remove the acetate off the back if I decide that I want to put one down, or a balloon or something like that in place here or in the back. And again, it's just generally what you prefer, what the person that you're making the card for, what they really like. You know, they're totally into flowers, and you might want to put flowers more all over it. If not, then keep it the way you have it done. That's part about making these pop-up cards that I like, is the creativity part of it. It's totally, everyone is unique in its own way. So I'm just going to play around with some stamps, some sentiments, and I'll be right back. And so we went with personalized greeting on the front, wishing a very special person a very special birthday. Both of those have the gold matte frame around them. And just got to get the excess glue off of the flower here. And this card will have double-sided tape on the back. They can write the message in it, and then they stick it on the back of the card, like so. Double-sided tape, remove it, back of the card, and then it gets folded down and put in the envelope. And everything is good. Have a great day. Bye.